purpose of these meetings, this meeting, is to make decisions about the management of wildlife in the state of Tennessee. We will be meeting briefly this morning, hopefully, and anyone from the public or anyone else who would like to speak, you have a right to do so. And if you decide you want to make a speech, make some comments, please come forward to the microphone, state your name, and speak on whatever subject you want to speak on. If you want to speak about wildlife, please wait until the Wildlife Committee is making its presentation to the Commission. If you want to speak about fisheries, the same, and that way we can keep everything together. Either I or a committee chairman have a right to cut you off if you talk too much or if what you say is redundant. But you can say anything you want to otherwise. No name calling. Let's now have invocation. Commissioner Wright.
Our Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for another day of life, the privilege of just being able to be here today. We pray that, Father, in wisdom, that we make decisions that's good for your creation and for the resources that we have within the state. We thank you, Father, for all the workers, the people that care about the things that we have and we enjoy as hunters. And so, Father, I just pray, continue to give us the wisdom to manage and to control, Father, that which you created. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll now have a roll call.
Carol Cannon.
Here.
Jeffrey Griggs.
Here.
Julius Johnson. Robert Martineau. Jeff McMillan.
Here.
Mitchell Parr.
Here.
Julie Schuster. Daniel Welch. Eric Wright.
Here.
Thank you. We now have approval of the minutes. They are in your notebook.
Excuse me. Trey T.
Here. He's got a short.
Hope you've all read the minutes. Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Got a motion and a second to approve the minutes. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Chairman Carter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At last month's meeting, we talked about the Ducks Unlimited 75th anniversary and the fact that the National Convention would be here in Tennessee. Actually, it takes place at the end of this month and the very first day or so of June, so it's coming right up. And at last month, you passed a draft resolution that was honoring the DU organization for all that they've done over the number of years and for their partnership through the agency. With your permission, I'd like to read that resolution again. And we have some folks here from Ducks Unlimited. We'd like to make a formal presentation. Mr. Larry Richardson, who is chair, the state chair for DU, will be accepted on behalf of Ducks Unlimited. But if I could, let me read this, please. Whereas Ducks Unlimited was created in 1937 during the Dust Bowl, when North America's drought-plagued waterfowl populations had plunged to an unprecedented lows, and whereas determined not to sit idle by as the continent's waterfowl dwindled beyond recovery, a small group of sportsmen joined together to form an organization that became known as Ducks Unlimited. And whereas this organization is now the world's largest and most effective private waterfowl and wetlands conservation organization, and is able to multilaterally deliver its work through a series of partnerships with private individuals, landowners, scientific communities, government agencies such as the Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency, and other entities. And whereas waterfowl are not the only beneficiaries of DU's habitat work, as wetlands improve the overall health of our environment by recharging and purifying groundwater, moderating floods, reducing soil erosion, and are nature's most productive ecosystems, providing critical habitat to more than 900 wildlife species and invaluable recreation opportunities for people to enjoy. And whereas the United States alone has lost more than half of its original wetlands and continues to lose more than 80,000 acres of wetlands most important to wildlife each year, and whereas the Ducks Unlimited is a grassroots volunteer-based organization of conservationists and outdoor enthusiasts whose volunteers hosted more than 4,400 grassroots fundraising events during fiscal year 2011 and throughout the United States, Canada, and Mexico. And whereas event dollars represent some of DU's most important sources of revenue, and is able to spend these funds in high priority areas and use them to leverage additional funds from other sources, and whereas Ducks Unlimited has either influenced or conserved more than 108 million acres in North America and partnered directly with the Wildlife Resources Agency to enhance and restore 47,000 acres and influence an additional 167,000 acres of critical waterfowl breeding grounds. And whereas Ducks Unlimited has its mission to conserve, restore, and manage wetlands and associated habitats for North American waterfowl, and whereas these habitats have been critical to restoring waterfowl populations, they also benefit other wildlife and people. Now, therefore, let it be resolved by the Tennessee Wildlife Resources Commission, the Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency concurring, that we hereby honor and commend Ducks Unlimited personnel and volunteers in its successful endeavor to improve habitats for waterfowl and other wildlife species in North America, as well as its citizens, and offer our sincere thanks and appreciation for a job well done. Just end that by saying that some of the commissioners and I were able to view some of the acres that have been set aside in Canada. Went there last year and met with the Ducks Unlimited folks in Saskatchewan, and there's a set of acreage that's set aside that actually has a plaque there honoring Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency for its work. And about $2.7 million has been set aside through the agency over a number of years to help preserve those wetlands, because if we don't preserve what's going on in Canada, there's no ducks for us to have when we do our waterfowl planning and our waterfowl work here throughout the state of Tennessee. It's been a great partnership through the two organizations, and I see no reason why that won't consider for any number of years to come. So with that, I'd ask Larry Richardson if he would come forward, please.
Chairman Parks and Director Carter, guests and staff of TWRA. I also brought or accompanied me this morning Charlie Lowry from Athens, Tennessee, who's a regional director, and Chris Cole from Huntington, who's director of development for Ducks Unlimited, staff that work with everybody across the state. We are honored and pleased to be here today. I'm always excited to come over here. I used to work here, and I'm so excited that I got one of my 2 traffic tickets driving to work one day to a commission meeting. And obviously the Nashville's best was not an outdoorsman, because he didn't see the humor in some of my remarks and trying to get off from the ticket, so had to pay that one. But always glad to be here, and thank you for that resolution. Tennessee Ducks Unlimited, as well as the other 49 states in the country, have great partnerships with all the state agencies across the country, and I think this is probably one of the best partnerships in the country. We have, as Director Carter pointed out, almost 50,000 acres in the ground that we've contributed to here in Tennessee, from one end of the state, truly from one end of the state to the other. And these projects benefit not just waterfowl, but other wildlife around the areas, and they are a real advantage to the waterfowl hunter, because they attract ducks, they feed ducks, they keep them here, and so we can take advantage of that opportunity and that resource. We plan to work with TWRA closely in the years to come, and want to do everything we can to improve the wetland conservation in the state of Tennessee. So again, thank you for this resolution. I'll make sure it gets to the proper hands so they can, everybody can view it in DU, and we want you all to feel like you are invited to our 75th anniversary convention at Opryland at the end of the month. Come out and meet other people from across the country who are enthusiastic waterfowl hunters and conservationists. Again, thank you for inviting us here this morning and for the resolution. John, would you and Chris come up for the photograph?
Director Carter, do you have any other comments before we get started?
Just one brief one, sir, that we had a bit of a technical difficulty in posting yesterday's proceedings on the internet last night. So if someone's watching this afternoon when we do get it posted, they'll know why it wasn't there yesterday. But we're having that corrected pretty quickly. We want to get up as quickly as we can. I will tell you that I had a number of calls last night from different organizations talking about some of the proceedings yesterday, and I know they're waiting to see how things move out today. But anyway, a lot of interest today, a lot of interest in what you did yesterday, but we'll have that problem corrected soon.
Thank you. Now we'll have a report from the Wildlife Management Committee. Commissioner Wright.
Darrell, would you come please?
Thank you, Commissioner Wright. The following should move relatively quickly. What I want to do is present the proclamations that you were provided yesterday and the preceding month. And these proclamations that we bring before you today set the hunting seasons in the state of Tennessee. And the proclamations that we'll be discussing or adopting today are the following. And so yesterday, the Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency presented Proclamation 12-04. This is the proclamation that allows the taking of raptors for the purpose of falconry. And the agency requests that the Commission adopts Proclamation 12-04 as proposed.
Wildlife Committee voted, and I recommend the passage of Proclamation 12-04.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Been moved and second to approve Proclamation 1204. Are there any comments from the commission? Anyone in the audience? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Darrell?
Yesterday, the Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency presented Proclamation 12-05. This is the proclamation that sets the manner and means of hunting and taking in Tennessee. And the manner and means of hunting, taking, and trapping in Tennessee. The agency requests the Commission adopts Proclamation 12-05 as proposed.
Chairman Parks, the Wildlife Committee voted, and I recommend the passage of Proclamation 12-05.
Can I get a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that Proclamation 1205 be approved. Are there any comments or questions from anyone? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Yesterday, the Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency presented Proclamation 12-06. This is the proclamation that sets the statewide big game hunting seasons and bag limits. The Wildlife Committee voted to amend Section B, which is the white-tailed deer bag limits and season dates, to change the closing date of gun season from January 1st to run through the first full weekend in January. The Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency requests that the Commission adopts Proclamation 12-06 as amended by the Wildlife Committee.
Chairman, the Wildlife Committee voted, and I recommend the passage of Proclamation 12-06 as amended.
Second.
Second.
Any comments or questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Yesterday, the Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency presented Proclamation 12-07. This is the proclamation that sets the wildlife management area hunting seasons. The Wildlife Committee voted to amend the South Cherokee raccoon possum season to allow raccoon possum hunting in the Ocoee and Tellico Bear Reserves from January 1st through January 31st with a 2-dog maximum limit per vehicle. The Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency requests the Commission adopts Proclamation 12-07 as amended by the Wildlife Committee.
Mr. Chairman, the Wildlife Committee voted, and I recommend the passage of Proclamation 12-07 as amended.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Yesterday, the Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency presented Proclamation 12-08. This is the proclamation that sets the National Wildlife Refuge hunting seasons. The agency requests the Commission adopts Proclamation 12-08 as proposed.
Mr. Chairman, the Wildlife Committee voted, and we move to pass Proclamation 12-08.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve Proclamation 12-08. Are there any comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Yesterday, the Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency presented Proclamation 12-09. This is the proclamation that repeals the importation of cervid carcasses and parts. The agency requests that the Commission adopts Proclamation 12-09 as proposed.
Wildlife Committee voted, and we move to pass and to accept Proclamation 12-08.
Second, please.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve Proclamation 1209. Are there any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Yesterday, the Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency presented Proclamation 12-10. This is the proclamation that repeals the elk hunting seasons. The agency requests that the Commission adopts Proclamation 12-10 as proposed.
Wildlife Committee voted, and we moved to pass Proclamation 12-10.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Mr. Chairman, just for clarification, because it wasn't on TV last night, the reason we're repealing this, Darrell.
The elk seasons have been moved to the big game proclamation, so the elk seasons are still in proclamation.
Thank you, Darrell.
Are there any comments or questions? All in favor of Proclamation 12-10, vote aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay.
Yes. Yesterday, the Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency presented Proclamation 12-11. This is the proclamation that sets the statewide small game hunting seasons and bag limits. Within it are the quail season limits that the Commission amended at the April Commission meeting. The agency brings forward this proclamation, and it's open for discussion.
Darrell, I know
Hey,
that, I'm sorry,
okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Any discussion on this before we take a vote?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Darrell, we had some lengthy discussion yesterday regarding the end of the season being February for private lands and January for public lands. Does staff have a position on this split season?
Yes, we did discuss with the staff yesterday and early morning today, and if we were to recommend a position on the quail season, we would like to see the Commission set a uniform statewide quail season. The closing date is up to the Commission, but we would prefer not to have a split private land, public land season.
Commissioner Wright, with your permission, I would propose an amendment to what was passed by committee yesterday, whereby the end of the season on both public and private land would be February as opposed to the split season.
There's a motion and a second to approve the 12-11 with a quail season amendment that would keep the seasons uniform. Is that clear enough?
Closing on the last day of February.
Yes, sir.
Closing on the last day of February. Are there any comments or questions? Any
Mr.
clarity?
Chairman, if I might.
Yes.
Just in way of a clarification, make sure that we're on the same page here with what we're intending to do. When we go with that amendment, we discussed yesterday that on some management areas, that being public land, that it wouldn't necessarily have the same closing area. So the statewide season would be exactly as you proposed, and on those management areas that are open with statewide seasons, it would be that. But on some management areas, it would actually close earlier depending on that particular area. So, if that's-
Director Carter, that is consistent with what my intent was, and as I understand it, I think you all are scheduling an update as far as the quail plan here in the near future.
Yes, sir. As a matter of fact, we also discussed that maybe at next month's meeting, we would drop back and come forward with how we got to where we are, work that's been done in the past, and essentially where the areas where that we put time and money, and bring you up to speed on that and give you an overview of what the plan is to this point.
Thank you, sir.
Any further questions or discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? It's approved.
That concludes the proclamations presented for the 2012 Tennessee hunting seasons.
We need to do something else here. We voted to amend, but we didn't vote the amended proclamation.
I make a motion to adopt proclamation 12-11 with amendments.
As amended.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve 12-11 as amended. Any questions, comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No, it's okay. Oh, yeah. This is a rulemaking hearing before the Tennessee Wildlife Resources Commission to consider amending Rule 1660-01-02, which deals with rules and regulations for birds. My name is Mitchell Parks, and I will conduct the hearing. The order of the proceedings will be the Tennessee Wildlife Agency will present information on the proposed rule amendment. Commission members will be permitted to comment and ask questions. Members of the audience will be permitted to comment and ask questions. Staff members will be wishing to speak should identify themselves and correction. Staff members and members of the audience wishing to speak should identify themselves before speaking. I reserve the right to limit comments and discussions and to, especially in areas of repetition. Now,
Great. Thank you, Commissioner Parks. As you mentioned, we're talking about a rule amendment to 1660-1-02, rules and regulations of birds, especially dealing with some issues that are going on in the dewatering areas in West Tennessee. Primary justification for this amendment is to address these potential impacts of some TVA infrastructure repairs. Basically, under some new guidelines, they needed to go in and do some infrastructure repairs on their levees and dewatering their pumps to get these areas dewatered. It is going to have some impacts, potential negative impacts on the permanent registered blind holders in this West Sandy area. And again, going to this main area, the repairs needed to be conducted during the waterfowl hunting season in the winter when the water levels are at their lowest, to keep the safety as a primary concern. And we had to assume there's going to be great negative impact to these duck hunting opportunities, which include the permanent registered blind holders, which include the permanent blind holders, which is the annual draw, and the walk-in hunters. The walk-in and the permanents are sort of uniformly impacted across the state. The unfortunate part of this is, and what's driving this, is the permanent registered blind holders are not allowed to enter a duck blind draw if as a holder. And so if their opportunities are taken away, they cannot participate in any other TWRA duck blind drawings. And so to address that concern, we do propose this rule amendment to get these individuals into a blind drawing if they so choose. The solution is to amend the rule 1660-01-02.02, which is the migratory bird hunting section, to allow the executive director the discretion to allow permanent blind holders to participate in other TWRA blind drawings. Our opportunities, and that does include sign-ons. The large wording is here, which says everything, but it basically boils down to giving these individuals an opportunity to enter the additional duck blind draws and ability to sign on. And that is a relatively minor change, but a very important change. And if there's any questions, comments that I can address at this point, I'd be happy to.
Are there any comments or questions?
Is that just going to be during the time that the dams and stuff are going to be?
Correct, correct. Just for we expect it to be, it's a minimum of 2 years, but it may be going to a third year if everything goes bad, but it should be a 2-year process, and it only impacts that 2-year period on West Sandy.
Director Carter?
Just wanted to mention that we did have a public meeting in the Paris where it was well attended by especially obviously those people who had registered blinds in that area, the permanent blind holders. The idea was to try to keep as much confusion down as we could among those people who are in the draw blinds. But long story short, I guess, is that after the conclusion of the meeting and talking with a lot of people who were there, and some of the other people who had either made phone calls or let us know that their preference, matter of fact, I didn't hear a single person whose preference was they don't want to participate in another blind drawing. They want to keep their registered blinds and stay there. So just as a way of explanation, it's all still under consideration as to which way we'll go. But to keep down confusion, it would appear at this particular time that that's the way the public wants to go, and to keep people from wondering whose blind's registered and whose isn't, we'll probably move toward trying to make a uniform ruling as opposed to piecemealing it among all the different blinds. Just want to put that in as a part of the discussion, but that was the overwhelming sentiment. And as I say, I didn't hear a single other person say that they would like to go the other way. So that's what's pretty much under consideration. This rule allows us that leeway to do that. So thank you.
Thank you. Any comments or questions? Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
We'll have a roll call vote.
Yes.
Jeffrey Gregg,
Yes.
Jeff McMillan,
Yes.
Mitchell Parks,
Yes?
Trey T,
Yes.
Eric Wright.
Yes.
Thank you. Now we'll have a fisheries report. Jeff McMillan, Commissioner. This is the right one here. This is a rulemaking hearing before the Tennessee Wildlife Resources Commission to consider amending Rules 1606-01-28, which deals with the rules and regulations governing license and permit fees. My name is Mitchell Parks, and I will be conducting the hearing. The order of proceedings.
You said 1606.
Oh, I'm sorry, 1660-01-28. Order of proceedings, Tennessee Wildlife Resources staff will present information on the proposed rule amendment. Commission members will be permitted to comment and ask questions. Members of the audience will be permitted to comment and ask questions. Staff members and members of the audience wishing to speak should identify themselves before speaking, and I reserve the right to limit comments and discussion, especially in cases of repetition.
Thank you, Vice Chairman Parks. This amendment deals with miscellaneous licenses, permits, and fees. There's just a change, and then there's a couple of additions to it. I'll go over them individually. Back in the legislative session, there were a variety of commercial fishing bills that were introduced. One of them dealt with the commercial fishing helper's license, the non-resident one in particular. First of all, let me explain that one. A commercial fisherman has to purchase this permit or license if he wants to employ or use someone to help him run his fishing gear, be in a boat with him, or assist him in any way. And there was some confusion even among our own staff as to whether this meant that a resident commercial fisherman even had to hire a resident helper, or if he had to hire a non-resident helper, did he have to have this non-resident commercial fishing helper's license? So to clarify things and to simplify things, we eliminated the non-resident commercial fishing helper license and just made one called a commercial helper license for commercial fishing for both resident and non-resident. Are there any questions on that before I go forward? Does anybody have a question? Okay, the next one is a resident, non-resident commercial turtle permit supplemental. This is not a new permit. It's one that we issued from the Fisheries Management Division office when they apply for it. We're trying to make this simpler and easier for the commercial fishing industry to obtain, so we're going to put it on the reel system, so we have to add that into the rule as well. And there's no cost for that. The next one is also in response to some legislation that was introduced. It has to do with bow fishing for Asian carp, and we agreed to create a license, a bow fishing license. We will address later in proclamation as to what it will be for, but for right now we had to put this in here. The purpose behind it is that there's a group of folks out there that want to bow fish for Asian carp, and to provide some incentive for removing as many Asian carp as they can, they would like to be able to sell the Asian carp and commercially. And so at first we looked at putting it under a commercial fishing license, but that cost $200, and at 15 to 16 cents a pound for these Asian carp, it would probably not ever recoup their cost of buying the license. So we agreed to create a resident, non-resident commercial fishing bow license at no cost. Will also help us keep track of the number of folks that utilize this permit in the future. So that we will, like I said, I'll address this in proclamation as to what species, but it's basically the Asian carp is what it'll be, the big head, the silver carp, and as well as the grass carp.
Any questions, comments?
Yep. Well, probably when we do our preview for all the fishing regulations in August, and it will be voted on in October. I need to find out from legal if we can do that, because I'm not sure if the rule will be in effect yet. Do we do a proclamation before that possibly goes into effect? Okay, Cheryl's shaking her head yes. So yeah, probably hear about it in August.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions or comments? Can I get a motion to approve? Second?
Second.
Got a motion and a second to approve. We'll have a roll call vote.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
I've got one other thing. In a separate rulemaking notice, when that first rule was filed downtown, shortly after that, we realized that there was another type of license that was on the reel system, was not included in the rule, and it was too late to put that in the First Amendment, so we had to submit this one. And it is basically the resident senior commercial fishing license. There's no charge for that. Like I said, it's already in the, on the reel system, but it was not in the rule. So this is a housekeeping thing to put that into the rule.
Is that something for the commission to vote on?
I have to vote on that as well. A roll call.
Can we do that since no notice was given?
A notice was given.
Notice was given, okay.
It was just done separately after the fact, but it was given. Matter of fact, you could have voted on it a little while ago when you voted on the other stuff, but separately is fine too.
Would you explain that again then, please?
Give me, explain what we did?
Yeah.
Okay. This is, it's an existing license. It's already on a reel system, but for some reason, it was never included in this rule. So we're adding this to the rule. It's not a new license, and there's no cost to it either. It's a housekeeping, it was omitted out originally.
Anybody have any questions about that? Can I get a motion to approve?
Move.
Can I get a second? Moved and second to approve the rule, the amendment to the rule. We'll have a roll call vote.
Yes.
Jim Gregg,
Yes.
Jeff McMillan, Mitchell Park,
Yes.
Trey Teague,
Yes.
Eric Wright.
Yes.
Anything else? Thank you.
We'll now have a report from the Fisheries Management Committee. Mr. McMillan. I'm sorry. Government Relations, Jeff Griggs.
Thank you, Chair Parks. This time I'd like to call Nat Johnson, Assistant Director, to come to the podium and give us a legislative update. Nat.
Thank you, Commissioners. I want to say I appreciate the remarks yesterday and any success we may, may have enjoyed has got to be shared with the assistance we get from the legal section of Tracy Boyers and Cheryl and Lisa Crawford. They're the ones that feed me the information down there, and could not be able to do what I do without them. So we've wrapped up the session. Obviously, all the bills that were out there for last year are now gone. Anything that comes before us has to be reintroduced next year. We did end up with a couple of new different licenses for disabled individuals, and you'll see some more about those as we come forth with the rules. I think we've probably made some strides and hopefully start out next session on a little bit better situation than we did this year. I think we'll go in a little bit smoother. We've got a little bit more confidence with leadership of both the House and the Senate, and I believe we're getting a little bit better understanding with the administration about some of the issues that are before us and how we're addressing those. Just a short thing, I think probably a couple of the issues that we'll be facing again next year. I would say there'll probably still be a couple of comment or two on the hogs. That's probably not going to go away as long as we're dealing with that. I do think that it appears that maybe the bear hunters have settled down a little bit from what I'm getting from some of their representatives yesterday. I think probably from what we know now, the issue that we think will still be out there that will cause us the greatest concern is something we dealt with somewhat this year, and it's the issue that deals with the Fourth Amendment to the Constitution to protection from unreasonable search and seizure of your person and your things versus our authority to inspect for compliance with wildlife regulations that are there to protect this public trust resource. And there seems to be some differing opinion by some members of the General Assembly that we shouldn't be able to do virtually anything without a search warrant. would greatly hamper our ability to carry out our duties. Our law specifically says that we cannot search a person's house or business. We cannot perform an inspection on their house or business. It's specifically excluded. And we are not inspecting their person or their things. We're inspecting for compliance in this highly regulated industry, for compliance, for protection of this public trust resource. That wildlife that may be on their property is not their property. It's a public trust resource. But I think that may be one of the biggest issues we'll have next year. We've had some discussion with some of the members about that, and we're moving them a little bit more in our direction. But that may be an issue that we have a lot of discussion on next year. But I do think we will go into next year's session in a lot better posture than we went in this year. I appreciate y'all's support for tough times we went through. Sometimes I know it was a little bit dicey, but I appreciate y'all's support too.
Thank you, Nat. Anybody on the commission have any comments or questions?
Yeah, I got a question. I went online yesterday and it's General Assembly, and then where it says search for the bill you're looking for, I typed in wildlife. That was a long list of them. How many total, do you remember?
Yes, sir. We have a tracking system that Lisa Crawford basically keeps up with. And I wrote those numbers down there. They track 274 bills, but they track bills that deal on the law enforcement side also. And the ones that were on my list, I had 175. There are about 35 that we really had to pay attention to out of that. But yeah, it's quite a number that they deal with and we deal with on a daily basis to keep up with. And they keep up with on a daily basis what happens to every one of those bills. So there was quite a few, and we did had some individual members who were very interested in what we did.
Anyone else on the commission? Anyone in the audience? Again, Nat, as Chairman Brown said yesterday, we appreciate all your hard work, and we know you had a busy year. Maybe next year you'll have a lighter load.
I hope so. Thank you.
Vice Chair Parks, thank you.
All right. Commissioner McMillan, budget.
Mr. Nightfall is going to discuss the budget expenses.
Thank you, Commissioners. Yesterday, I came before you requesting a budget expansion for project number 6943 for $200,000. This is Tier 1 grant money, 100% federal. It's flow-through money for 3 projects for boating. And one is on the Tellico River Development, Harbortown Marine on Lake Tellico. The other is a maintenance project at Pebble Isle Marine on Kentucky Lake to repair some flooding and wind damage. The other is a transit facility, City Park of Ashland City. The Boating and Law Enforcement Division would request that you allow us to expand the budget to accommodate those projects. Be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for the commission? Chairman Parks, the Budget Committee voted and recommend approval of the budget expansion as presented.
Can I get a second? Second. Been moved and second to approve the budget expansion. Any questions? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Thank you, Commissioner.
Mr. Peterson.
Thank you, Commissioners. I came to you yesterday to request a budget expansion of $150,000 for a shooting range in Carroll County. These are flow-through dollars. It's federal money. The Carroll County, there's a private group that will provide the matching funds to cover the 25% of the match, and it's to expand budget 1551, $150,000 in the current fiscal year There's so the paperwork is slightly off. It looks like we're requesting next year's budget, but it's to expand the current year budget.
Chairman Parks, the Budget Committee voted and recommend approval of the budget expansion as presented.
Can I get a second? Second. Been moved and second to approve this budget expansion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Tarkin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There's a two-page report in your book. I'll be reporting on the financial condition of the allotment funds of the boating and wildlife and wetlands funds through the month of March. At the top of the page, the boating fund through March has received approximately 4% less in revenues than at the same point in time last fiscal year, and we're at approximately 40% expenditures of the allotment for the fiscal year. The center of the page, the wildlife fund, we have exceeded our last year's increase, or rather our last year's collections through this year of approximately 5.5%, and the subsequent month of April has been just about as good. So the revenues are coming in the wildlife fund. On the expense side, we're at approximately 61% expenditures of the annual allotment. And at the bottom of the page, the two endowment funds, the Watchable Wildlife, has approximately $28,500 available for expenses on a balance of $5.5 million. And the Lifetime Sportsman Fund has a balance of approximately $31,800,000. Top of the last page, second page, the acquisition fund. The Wetlands Acquisition Fund has $6,679,000. The Maintenance Fund, we traditionally zero out. There's a $1 there due to rounding. And the Compensation or in lieu of tax fund has $742,000. This last week we received the certification of the in lieu of tax payments for the year from the Comptroller of the Treasury, and as of yesterday they had all been entered into our accounting system. So as of the month of May, those expenses will be paid, and they're approximately $369,000 for the year. Any questions or comments? Thank you.
That wraps it up for the day. Anyone have any comments, anything else to bring before the commission? The next meeting, for some of us, last meeting, will be next month. What's the date?
June
14th and 15th of next month. And any future dates will be set by future commissions. Any other comments? We're ready to adjourn. We're adjourned.
That's the goal.